Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Shams Meccea.
Thank you everyone. So my name is Shams Meccea, and I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I'm a motion design freelance artist. I mainly do concert visuals and music rollouts for Instagram. So yeah, I basically started with Cinema 4D about 4 years ago, and since then, I've created a huge library of works that I've worked with many music artists. I basically started out as a kid loving art, but I wasn't technically good at the fine arts, so I picked up other mediums that I could perfect, such as photography and graphic design, and also went to school for digital design and web development. And being the Tumblr kid that I am, I kept seeing all these loops and GIFs of these amazing 3D artists, and I kind of was like, maybe I should pick it up. So 2 weeks later, after I did my first course of Cinema 4D intro, I started posting on Instagram, and 3 months later, I got my first client, and I haven't looked since. So I'm going to show you a little bit of my work that I have prepared for you guys, and then we'll jump into some projects that I've done commercially and both personally too. Okay, thank you everyone. So yeah, a lot of feminine energy in my work and like spiritual energy, and I also kind of add in some of the fantasy and movies that I really like, peppered into some of my work. If you pick it up, that's really cool. So I'm gonna start with a intermediate and like a little bit of harder pieces later on. So the first piece that I'm going to show you guys is this. And it was background visuals for one of the artists that I worked with, Metro Boomin. They wanted something very simple and not to take away from the artist itself. And like they wanted like a kind of like a trippy kind of look. So, and also with concert visuals, I have to work very fast and something that renders quite quickly. So, so let's jump into cinema and get this started. Okay, so I usually like to change my settings, my render settings into a square, just so I can see where I'm working. And we're just going to start with a really simple plane. And let's start getting the texture right away. And the texture is pretty simple. We're just going to have lines going. We're going to disable our color channel, and we're going to disable our reflectance channel. We're just going to focus on the luminance channel on this one. And we're going to go up to texture and surfaces and tiles. And we're going to click on tiles and select lines 1 for the pattern. And we're just going to make all of this black. And then have white for our stripe color. Right now, let's apply it to our geometry, to our plane. Okay, so right now our lines are pretty thick. I don't want that, so let's make it like before. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that's good. Okay, so we got this going, and right now it's like pretty much too much space going on in here. So I'm gonna just get the scale, the global scale down to maybe like, I don't know, 11. Let's see how that looks. That looks good. I'm gonna up the grout width a little bit just so we have a little bit of thicker lines that we can see. And I zoomed in just a little bit. So for us to get the waves going, we're just basically gonna use a displacer. And right now the plane has only 20 segments. So let's up this just so everything looks a little bit smoother. Oops. Cool. And then, yeah, let's have the displacer be the child of our plane. And we're going to go to shading, shader, and then noise, right? And then we can already see something being applied. Let's go back to object and up the height. And you can already see there's some little turbulence going. But right now it looks all jagged and like weird. So let's go back to our noise. And let's get the global scale up. So we have these like cool, kind of like more subtle looking waves. I like that. Okay, so let's drop this. Right now we could still see like a little bit of geometry. So let's drop this in a subdivision surface just to smooth everything out. And now it looks much better. And let's animate this. Let's get this looping right away. So right now we have 90 frames. And for us to loop this, we just basically, it's 30 frames per second. So we're just going to add 3 in here since it's 3 seconds. And let's get the animation speed up to 0.2. And click play. And right away, we have a seamless loop that goes pretty quickly. And you know what? It renders quickly as well. Like, this took, like, no time. So, for you to render this. And the cool thing about our noise displacer right here is that we could change the type and get so many different looks out of this. Like, and then, you know, and it all kind of, you know, loops just the same. Like, more, you know, like, depending on the look that you are looking for, you could get so many different looks. And, they all look pretty good, and they all render pretty quickly. So that was this piece. And, yeah, we could jump into something a little bit more difficult. So this one I also did for a beautiful R&B artist called SZA. And we wanted to kind of highlight her silhouette in the middle and have her song was about butterflies. And so yeah, so we wanted to highlight her in the middle of the stage and the glowing sphere to be right in the middle. So yeah, let's get this started. Command N, get a new composition, and start with a square as well. I was lucky for this particular tour because her screen behind her was a square, and I usually love to work with squares myself. Let's start with the sphere, make it just a little bit smaller. Let's disable the sphere for now, and I'm going to apply the plane. And that's going to be basically the base of our butterfly. It doesn't look like a butterfly right now, but it will in just a little bit. And it's all about utilizing our textures in Cinema 4D. It's pretty easy to make something very quick. So right now we have this. Maybe let's make it a little smaller. And let's jump into textures right away. So we're going to go to our color. And I basically just found a free image of a butterfly online. This was the image. And I cut it in the middle right here. And that was my, you know, in Photoshop, I just cropped it in the middle. And I made an alpha channel, black background, white foreground to make the alpha channel, kind of like a cookie cutter. So let's see how that works. We're just going to drop this into our color. And let's drop this on our plane. Okay. So right now we have this ugly white background. We could just get rid of that, go to our alpha channel in our material, and ticket, and then we're going to go to texture. No, we're going to click this and get our alpha. And then right away, we have half of our butterfly going, which is pretty cool. Okay, so for us to have 2 wings in here, we could just utilize one of our generators here, Symmetry. And we're going to drop the plane into our Symmetry. And let's just make it nice, right, like that. Perfect. We have the 2 wings. And now we're going to want to make the wings flap so they can fly. So I'm going to go right-click, Cinema 4D tags, and then vibrate tag, right? So let's let's enable the rotation first. Let's 0 this out. And let's add whatever number. And then click play. Okay, cool. If you run into this problem, basically all you need to do is make this plane editable. So we're going to click C or click this button right here. And then click L to move the axis from the middle to the edge. So just like that. And click L again to exit, and then now we have the right motion. Perfect. So what I want to do is let's bring back our sphere. Actually, let's hide it. What I want to do is have a bunch of these butterflies going. So what we're going to do is get a cloner, drop our Symmetry into our cloner, and we're going to go with grid array. And right now, that's way too many butterflies. I'm going to bring this down to 1. And for us, because we are going to be using dynamics for this, I don't want a lot of intersections or any intersections. So I'm going to just like kind of separate them out just so we don't get any intersections. And yeah, so let's drop a camera. Let's move this down. Let's move the butterflies down and move this into, and let's drop a camera, right? And so we could work nicely right here. Okay, so right now if we press play, nothing happens. What we're going to need to do is drop a collider body on our sphere. So right click, simulation tags, collider body, because that's where our butterfly is going to collide. And then we're going to go to our plane and right click, rigid body. So if we press play, nothing's going to happen. They just fall. So what we're going to need to do is get a simulate particle attractor. So we need the attractor to be roughly in the middle of our sphere. So yeah, let's press play and see what happens. Still they fall. That's because our attractor's strength is pretty low. So let's up it up a little bit. And the speed limit is too big. It's too much. And let's press play and see how that goes. Okay, we're getting something. It's not as strong. Let's give ourselves a little bit more frames. 300 would be good. This is a trick that I learned from Chris Schmidt, which saves me a lot of time. So just double click. It snaps right into the timeline. So yeah, let's see how that goes. Maybe let's make it a little bit more. The speed limit, maybe 300. See how that goes. A lot better. That's basically what I want. Okay, so yeah, right now that looks great. So let's start with the glowing sphere. We're gonna use the luminous channel here. We're gonna disable color, gonna disable reflectance as well. I use like a orangey kind of like yellow color, and we're gonna up our brightness in here. We're just play it by ear and kind of eye it out and then apply it. Let's see how that works for us. Let's render. The colors are a little bit flat, and also I can see some kind of weird texture problems, and that's the reason we just go to our plane, to our texture right here, and we want to disable tiling, and that will fix any kind of weird texture problems that are happening. So for that, so for us to have the glowing sphere to be emitting the light, we're just going to go to our render settings and add something called global illumination. And for the sake of this, we're just going to go to preview. I'm not going to walk through all the settings. We're just going to go to preview and see how that looks. Cool. We have, roughly the look that we want going. So for now, let's get maybe a. For the piece that I showed you guys, I used the HDRI Studio Rig. So we could use that, but honestly, you could use any light with some soft shadows, and that would work. So let's disable the floor because we don't need that. And I just basically, just so we could see the outside of the butterflies, because right now, so we already could see that. But so we could see some of the outside details, not just the inside. I'm going to just choose something pretty simple, something like this maybe. Let's render that, see how that looks. Cool, yeah, that looks fine. Maybe let's get the brightness a little bit less because I want it to be settled and I want the main light. Yes, I like that more. Okay, so let's get the sphere glowing. So what we're going to do is get back to this shader and enable glow. And usually the default settings is not that nice, so I usually just like to choose my own color. And I'm going to go with like a lighter kind of like outer glow yellow. And that looks good. And usually this is like way too much, so let's bump this down to like 30 and inner strength to like 20. And then like maybe let's get the radius to 100. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, we got a little bit of a glow, if you can see. What we can do as well, we can enable glow here in the settings, right here. And see how that kind of gives you like a little bit of bloom kind of look that if you have an octane, it's just a little bit too much. So yeah, you could just kind of play around with the settings and maybe make the intensity way less, with that. So let's just disable it for now. So in the example that I showed you guys, the butterflies didn't have a body. But right now, since I know a little bit of modeling, so I'm going to show just a little bit of technique to quickly model a butterfly body or anything, really, because this technique is amazing. So we're just going to start a new composition and just start with a capsule and make this butterfly body really quickly. So let's rotate it, make it way smaller. Okay, make it way smaller. Cool. Okay. And I'm just basically pressing Control and dragging to make a copy, and then I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger. That's for like the mid body, I guess, and maybe like let's get a sphere for the head, and I'm pressing T and dragging to make it smaller. Cool. That looks kind of ugly, like it's not that cool, but what we want is like everything to kind of flow nicely so we don't have these weird stops. So I'm gonna, one of my favorite generators that I use all the time is the bool. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put these in a bool, and first the bool doesn't really let us use more than one shape, more than two shapes. So what we're gonna do is basically group things together so we have two to pipe in. So so let's Alt G group this, and then group these two. Yeah, group these two together. Alt G again, group these, and then we're gonna select these two and then put it into our bool. Right now it's set to subtract, so we don't want that. We want union, and you don't see anything right now. Let's create single mesh object. So right now, again, you don't see anything going. That's because we need to put a smoothing deformer in. And voila, we have something that looks really cool, and you could just basically go big or small and just like manipulate it any way you want. So I'm going to keep it this way and like maybe make this a little smaller. It doesn't really matter. I'm not really sure how a butterfly body looks. I'm pretty sure they're all different. So yeah, let's drop a taper as well underneath this just to make it a little bit smoother as well here. Come on. Cool. And I'm pretty sure it's facing the wrong way. I'm gonna say fit to parent, and I'm gonna rotate it and go fit to parent again and make the strength way less. feel like that's how a butterfly body would be. Okay, so let's do the antlers real quick. The antlers, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that this trick is by Merc. He makes amazing tutorials online and yeah, just like amazing tutorials and plugins. So check him out, definitely amazing tips all the time on his Patreon. So yeah, so let's make the antlers for this butterfly body. So what I'm gonna use is basically just get the pen tool and go to this view right here. And then let's rotate this. Okay. And let's just zoom in, move a little bit. Okay. Get my pen tool again. And what I'm going to do is just basically draw a little antler. And then press space to get out of this. And we have our spline. And what I'm going to do is basically get a circle and sweep it, just so we have like a circle kind of sweep. Yeah, so this circle is right now is really gigantic. So we want to make it like much smaller. So instead of 200, let's go 1. Let's see what we have here. Okay, let's go 1, and we're going to get our sweep and put these in. And right away we have that. It's still pretty big, so let's make this, let's make the circle about like 0.3. Yeah, that looks good. And I'm just going to duplicate this again and then rotate it. So we have our, there we go. Perfect. Okay. And then we're just going to Alt-G group these, and let's go connect objects. So we have like a whole mesh that we could bring back to our scene with the butterflies. So let's go back to our scene. Where is my scene? Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's disable our cloner. Let's get out of our camera. Let's disable the cloner, and we're gonna Control V, copy the body, and then I'm gonna rotate it. I'm just pressing Shift and rotating, so it rotates in increments. So I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit. Okay. It looks like it's rotated. Yep, perfect. And you guys will have more time to play around with this, I'm sure. Okay. Cool. So we have that going. And I'm going to bring it to our cloner and basically select these two and group them together. So Alt-G again. And then I'm going to bring our tag right here up to the null, just so it applies to everything. And I'm going to go to our collision and go to compound collision shape, so they all stay together and like they don't fall apart. And then we're going to go all. Okay, so let's get back. Actually, let's see how that goes. Let's enable our cloner back again, and they all have the bodies now. And yeah, so let's see how that goes. Yeah, they just fly with the bodies. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, so that's it for this piece. The last piece that I'm going to be talking about is a personal piece that I've done. And up until this point, up until basically May this year, I only used all the Cinema 4D like built-in renderers, so physical and standard. Up until May, I picked up Octane, and this is the piece that I did with Octane. It's basically a loop that I did. It's a personal loop. I have it on Instagram. You guys can check it out over there. So yeah, so it basically loops from room to room, and it goes from this room, and it loops back to this room that we had. So yeah, so let's get started with this. I'm going to show you guys how to model basically the outside, all these doors, everything around. All these I've gotten for free from Turbo Squid or, any other, free models website. So yeah, let's get into this. Okay. So new. Okay. You guys know how I feel about squares. So we're going to change this to a square. And I usually, for my personal work, I use a lot of grays and blacks. And usually these bounds right here are just gray. So I usually like to change it to something else just so I can see where I'm working better. So I'm going to go to Mode. And I'm going to go to View Settings. And I'm going to go to View. And I'm going to just select any color, really, just to make it more obvious, and up the opacity just so we know where we're working. Especially with looping, you want like, because I eyeball things, so I want to know where things end and where things begin. So yeah, let's start modeling this right away, and we're going to start with the arc. So we're going to get the arc tool right here, and we're going to set it to 180. So we have the top of the arc, and we're going to make this editable. So we're going to click either C or this button right here. And we're going to go to this view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to enable snap just so I could complete this shape nicely. So I'm going to go enable snap right here, and then work plane snap, and then we want grid point snap. Cool. And I'm going to get the pen tool now and basically just click right here. Let's go down. Right here. I can't see. Okay, perfect. And now we have a whole shape, just the arc. And what we're going to do is just put this into an extrude. And then, yeah, I want this much bigger. Let's make this much bigger. Yeah. Cool. So I'm just basically dragging on the shape, and then it just gets bigger. Okay, so I want this to be much deeper as well. And I'm going to get a cube, and we're going to use the bool again to kind of get that cookie cutter look. Okay. They're all pretty big. Okay, let's make this smaller and this smaller too. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to just move this back. And right now, I usually just like to, just so we can see better. Okay, so we're going to get a bool right away and then drop this right here. Boom, we have this. Right, so all I'm going to do is drop our bool into a cloner. And right now, it's cloning in the wrong direction, so let's zero this out and get this to clone to the side. And we're going to start looping right away. Okay. I usually use a tablet at home, so I'm a little bit slow with the mouse, so pardon me. Okay, so this looks good. And we're going to do 7 rooms. In order for us to loop it perfectly. The one that in the example that you saw, it was 5, but you need extra rooms for you to loop properly, and you'll know why in a little bit. Okay, so let's start looping right away. I'm going to get my Octane window going, so live viewer window, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to drop an Octane camera. Okay, so let's zero the camera out. Cool. Oops. Okay. So I'm just going to rotate right here and bring this back. And we want it to start at the second room. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Let's bring it back a little bit and center it. Again, I just eyeball things with my personal loops because, you know, and then I render the first and last frame and see if they line up. This looks good to me. Okay. Let's make this smaller. Okay, yeah, this looks good. So what we're going to do is basically animate the camera to go from here to here, and that's all we're going to do. So, okay. Oops. Okay, we're going to go this way. Okay. Cool. So let's give ourselves more frames. So 300 again. And it's just a preference as well. So we're going to animate the X, drop a keyframe at the first frame. And in the last frame, we're going to bring this up to here. The second to last room. And again, I'll let you know why this is important for looping. For this to be right here, and then we're going to set another keyframe. So right now, our keyframes are set to linear, are set to spline, and we want them to be in linear mode. And that will help us not have that like weird stop and go with our camera movement. So that's really important if you're trying to loop stuff. So yeah, so you gotta set your keyframes to linear. And right now, if we go back here, let's edit this a little bit. Have this right in the middle. Oops, okay, no. It's pretty good, okay. And then we stop right here and it loops. That's how it's looping. Goes from here to here. Perfect. We have a perfect loop so far. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is basically get a cube for our runway where our model will be walking. So it's just a simple cube. I didn't do anything fancy for this. Yeah, just a simple cube. And right now, snap is still on. I just like it sometimes just when I'm looping stuff because I don't want to deal with math or anything like that. So it just makes it easier for me to know where things are. And yeah, let's make this a little bit wider. Let's look through and see how that looks. Okay, let's bring this down. Let's go here, bring it down, and maybe make it thicker. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So that's it for our runway. What we want is to basically have the walls with the doors going through so our model can go through in it. So what I'm going to do is basically get another cube. Okay. And that's going to be our walls. And how deep your wall is going to be how deep the room is going to be. So maybe something like this. Okay. So what I'm going to use is just basically duplicate this cloner. So I'm just holding click and dragging. And I'm going to delete what's inside and just get this cube down here. And we have this going. And the doorway is basically going to be the same width as this. So let's move this cube in the middle, something like that. And we're going to duplicate this as well. And we're going to make the door kind of, again, like the cookie cutter. So it's going to be maybe something like this. And we're going to put both of these in a bool. So where is my bool? My favorite. Okay, voila, right there. We have our doors. Okay, so right now it's a little bit too high. Yeah, I'm just gonna lower it down. And yeah, I usually really like seeing the door frames from here, so I don't, oh yeah, it's not lined up. So we wanna line the cloner up to right here maybe. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. So now we have our character. We'll be walking through here. And I basically just added a plane as a wall in the back right here. And I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees and make this bigger. Oops. Okay. And have it in the background right here. And that looks good for now. Perfect. So I'm going to just fast forward a little bit, and I'm going to open a fully named file just so we have a nicer look. But yeah, since I don't have that much time to go around and make everything look amazing. So yeah, right now we have the back wall. Everything is looping nicely. So we go from here to the end, and then it loops. So we got the loop going. So all we need is basically the models that were in here. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I basically, yeah, like I mentioned, I got most of these models from Turbo Squid. So I basically had 2 pillars going, and I had a chandelier. So I'm just going to File, Merge Object, and chandelier right here. Okay, let's get out of the camera and see where we are. They're pretty small. So yeah, I'm just gonna make them bigger. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna have my pillar go down here, and we want 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is get one of my favorite generators, the Symmetry. And let's grab the Symmetry and put it back here. And put our pillar in it. Cool. Right now we have 2 of these. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. And then we're going to move the Symmetry down and our chandelier up. And yeah, I basically just had like a gold texture on the chandelier and a black body emission on the little light bulbs. Yeah, so that's our first room. And the most important things to loop this, our first room and last room have to be exactly the same. So if you apply lights, anything into this room, the last room has to be the same, just so when we end up here, when we end up in the end, it all lines up. It's all the same light, right? So like I usually just add like for the example that I showed you guys, I just had an octane area light and position it wherever you want, right? And rotate it. I don't know why this is not updating. Okay, perfect, yeah. So we're just rotating it, and I basically just put it in the middle. Up here. Cool. Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna fast forward again to something a little bit nicer, something more, you know, a little bit like all named and everything. So let's go here. Nope, that's not the file that I want. Cool. Okay, so we have our first room set up and all of that, and I grouped it and I named it room number 1. Let's get back here. Let's delete this. Okay. Okay, let's delete this one. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically for us to just have the same room right here. I grouped it and named it, and I'm just going to go to our top view right here. And I'm just basically going to click Control and drag. And we have the same identical room right in the end. You may need to kind of like fiddle around and see if it lines up nicely. So let's exit out of here, back to here. And yeah, right now we have the exact same room in the end, so it loops perfectly. So for the second room, I just basically had a text going. Let's get back into here. It's nothing really fancy for the second one. It's just basically a black body emission, and that's like your luminance channel going. And for this one, I basically just got a DAS model, and I chopped off the body and like just stuck with the hands, and just to make it, you know, look, you know, cool like that. So yeah, so I basically, yeah, I'll show you. I just basically, and DAS is free, so you could basically just grab anything you want and do the exact same thing, basically. So yeah, let's grab our hands. And for the middle sphere, I basically just had a glass sphere going and a light inside that glass sphere. And again, all of that is inside of Octane. And I had like a little bit of roughness going on the glass sphere. So all I did is have this at the bottom, line it up, and yes, I used this Symmetry again. Let's bring the Symmetry in our view so we know where it is, right here. And drop our hand right here, perfect. And all I did is basically just get a sphere right inside. Pop it right here. It's all pretty simple, everything like you could basically do at home. Yeah, and I basically just had a smaller sphere right in the middle, so that's for that room. The interesting one is this room, and I really love, this is one of my favorite parts. I already demonstrated how to use the Displacer Deformer, and that's basically what I did here. I basically just had a texture that's like a glass texture within Octane. So a specular texture, and I just added some dispersion. And in the background, I basically just had a checkboard background to the room. So basically, the room is pretty empty. It's just, you know, the foreground that shows you something like this. So yeah, let's exit out of this. Get back in here. I'll show you quickly how I did it. So I'm going to exit out of my camera, bring it back in here. Let's rotate. And again, I'm holding shift and rotating, so it's in increments. And I'm going to make this barrier thing. Let's bring it down, make it bigger. Okay. So right now, for me to make the kind of like cell-looking thing, we have way too many segments right now. So we're going to go down to like 10 by 10. And right now, nothing is showing. So let's drop a displacer right in here. Again, nothing is really showing. We're going to go to noise. That's exactly what we did for the last one. And then we're going to up the height. And you can see something going on right now. And it doesn't look as like cracky, kind of like glass going. That's because we have a Fong tag right here. So I'm going to delete the Fong tag. And yeah, let's get that material going. All I added was this. And yeah, right there we can see how we have that like little glass thing going. Obviously, it shows better if there's lighting and everything happening, but you could kind of see what's going on. And yeah, you could just up the height to your preference. And basically, all I did is I got my index a little bit more up and got some dispersion in. And that's basically just gives you a little bit of like kind of RGB or like just colors going, which I really like in all of my glass that I use. So yeah, so that's basically how to model this, and then, you know, you end up at the last room, and we're just going to fast forward again, just so we can see better with better naming, because we really don't have time to name everything right now. Okay, so right there, we have everything going. Let's get this going. Yeah, we have everything pretty good. And then it just goes around and then ends in this room. Cool. Okay, so the only thing that's left is basically how and why we need 7 rooms. So right now, if you see right here, you could see a little bit through that room from here. And you could, in the end, you can see a little bit through that room right here. So you want the exact same lights on both ends. So what I'm going to do basically is just basically go up and do the exact same thing that I did earlier with the first room. So this room has this room on this side. So all we're going to do is grab this room and drag it and have it over here. So it's just basically because it has some lights. So the same lights can shadow over here. And this room has this room on the side, so we're going to need that neon sign to be right here, because it will peek through, and you want it to loop nicely. Okay, let's see where we are. Yeah, you want it to loop nicely, because you can see the little neon sign right here, and if it's not there, it's not going to loop seamlessly. So yeah, that's basically how and why we need 7 rooms, even though you can only see 5. Okay, so let's jump into how we're going to add our character. And all I did basically with my character is I downloaded from Daz, I downloaded a T-pose model and I uploaded it to Mixamo, got a walk cycle, like in-place walk cycle. And yeah, we're just going to bring this back to the first frame. Why can't we see it? Oh, yeah. No, we are in the first frame. Okay. Where is my model? Let's reopen this. Nope. My apologies. Okay, this one. Perfect. Okay. So let's get back to frame number 1. Yeah, this is my model. I'm just gonna bring her right in the middle. And since we have our camera animated already, that goes from first to last frame, all I'm gonna do is basically just child it to our camera, and right there we have our model walking, and it loops perfectly. You will have to kind of eyeball it because, you know, a walk cycle can be a little bit different, but yeah, it loops perfectly. I don't know why Octane is not doing that. Yeah, so it's a little bit slower. And all I did in the end, I used Marvelous Designer to make that cape that she had on. So let's jump into that. I just used Marvelous Designer to make this cape that was, you know, that I just put on her, and I animated it to that as well. Yeah, and everything else is pretty simple. Yeah, everything else is quite simple in here. It's just like gold detailing. Everything is gray, and there is a Octane mix material, and that I basically made checkboard kind of looking background for this, for right here, just so it looks, you know, extra trippy with the background checks kind of thing. So yeah, basically that's how I made this one, and yeah, this is it for my presentation. I'm gonna pull up some of the info that I have of where you guys can find me. I also would like to thank Maxon. Thank you, Matthias, for bringing me out. And yeah, you guys can check me out on Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, and get in touch. I'll be in the back if you guys have any questions. Please let me know. And if you, yeah, thank you.